Yeah, and I also think the bar for lead magnets has gone up significantly. It used to be an ebook, right? But like you don't even get people downloading that, and you've got to sell every element of it. And you've got to sell people in stages. I think people go for the jugular a bit too fast sometimes.
Welcome back to the Topline Growth Podcast, the show where we sit down with CEOs and founders of tech startups and scale-ups to talk about all things tech, growth, and go-to-market strategy. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Tom, the CEO and founder of Versapia. Tom, could you start by telling us a bit about your background and telling us about the business?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for having me, first of all. So my name's Tom Froggatt. As you said, I run a company called Versapia. So where this company came from is that I've spent the vast majority of my career in people, talent, and culture for technology and science-driven businesses. So I've worked in recruitment, in talent, in other functions, and ended up getting into a position where I was doing a lot of consulting work for companies on how to develop a high-performance culture. And over years of doing that, we developed a methodology that allowed us to go to any company really, and determine where they were culturally, figure out how to build to where they wanted to go to develop a culture that would really drive their results, and then give them clear steps along that path that they could execute to make that journey, which, culture is often an ambiguous, vague thing. We were able to make it really tangible. But every company is different. The methodology that we had, while it was repeatable, required a lot of tailoring, and so it required a lot of manual work. And so, to be honest, it was a really expensive solution to deliver, so we had to charge a lot of money for it. A lot of companies couldn't afford it. And while we were experimenting with technology in general and AI tools in particular, just over a year ago, we started to ask the question, well, could we set up an AI version of our consultants that could do the majority of the heavy lifting and do the tailoring of these cultural principles to different organizations? And that's what Versapia is. It's a culture operating system that combines software tools, AI tools, deep proven methodology of how to develop high performance culture, and then a layer of human expertise so that we can bring high performance culture inevitably to companies everywhere, from startups to companies that are very, very well established. So that's what we do.
Cool. Thanks for that walkthrough, Tom. I'd like to make that a bit more concrete, if I may, because like you said, culture is something that can be quite vague and hard to pin down exactly what that looks like. So when we're looking at Versapia, what does it actually mean practically for a company that adopts it? What kind of things would it help them improve and actually concretely change about the way they operate to improve their culture?
Yeah, it's probably two layers on which it's important to talk about this. The first is that the whole thing is underpinned by a proven methodology. So essentially, when I was running a different company several years ago, I started to look at, well, there are companies that succeed over and over and over again, and then that's the few, that's the minority, and then everybody else is sort of struggling to survive, and a lot of them don't make it. So I became a bit obsessed by this question of, well, why are those companies successful where everyone else is really struggling? What is it that they have in common? And, I struggled for a long time to find the common thread because they were all completely different. But the one thing I found was that they all had really distinctive cultures, and all of their CEOs talked about people and culture being the core of what they did. So I thought, okay, there's something there. When I looked into it, though, there wasn't really a clear system for developing that culture. So I started to look at, okay, what are the principles behind this? And this was where the culture operating system, which is the methodology, was developed. So 7 key elements of high performance culture that every company will be in different places on, but that you can use to determine where you are, where you should focus, what the next steps are, that kind of thing. So that's the first thing. The second part, as I say, is what have we actually built on top of that? So although the system's repeatable, every company is different. So we've built a platform that delivers in 3 phases. So first thing is diagnosis and strategy. So essentially, Verity, our AI culture expert within the platform, will do an assessment with the company, which will be coupled by one of our human culture experts doing a deep dive onboarding call. Verity will then go and interview every single employee in the organization. On a technical basis, we can currently go up to about 3,500 employees being interviewed in each organization. And she'll then analyze all 3 of those inputs, the assessment, the onboarding transcript, and the employee interviews, to determine what are the key priorities for this business? What's the gap between the culture that leadership thinks exists and what actually exists? And as a result of that, what action should be taken? That strategy is then checked by the human culture expert to give it that little bit more nuance. And then when the customer is happy with it, then we put that into place. But that is just the first step. The second step is all about execution. So it's all about guiding people every step of the way in terms of what to do. So 5 things we do there. The first is that you have a planner, a tracker, where you can assign tasks, you can communicate about different parts of the strategy, you can put in resources and tools and all that kind of thing. You can use that within your organization. We can see it as your culture experts, but so can Verity. The second part is a resource library. So every tool, framework, template that you might need. The third part is video training. So that's all embedded within the platform on every aspect of developing high performance culture. You could watch it from end to end, or you could dip in and out. Fourth part of the execution module is Verity is available as a 24/7 AI coach, both in the application, on email, and over Telegram. And critically, she doesn't just have the context of being trained on the culture operating system. She also knows your individual company's strategy inside out. She can see what progress you've made and where you're blocked and where things have been stuck for a while and all that kind of thing. So all of her coaching is really relevant to your organization. And then we add a layer of human coaching on top of that. So you regularly catch up with your culture expert and they'd be able to help you navigate any trickier situations or just, hold you a bit more accountable because it's kind of easy to ignore an AI, right? Nothing's really going to happen. But when you have to explain to a person why you didn't do the actions you were supposed to do, it holds people a bit more accountable. And then the third part is once you finish your strategy, which could take a few months, it could take a year, depends on the company, then we iterate. We go through what worked, what didn't work, what has shifted in the culture, what has shifted in terms of priorities and challenges. We do a new assessment, we do a new set of interviews, new strategies in place, and it's an iterative process. So it's everything from figuring out where you are and what you should do to all the tools, training, coaching, support you need to execute it on an ongoing basis.
It's great because you have a lot of background in this and you're now layering on the technology to support with that. And given how quickly technology is moving, as we know, and it's probably a lot of things you're focusing on how you can improve and develop the product. If we're looking into the future, I mean, when we're thinking about culture and what you deliver, that human piece is probably always going to be important and having that level there. But as technology improves, what elements do you think the technology and the AI will be able to take over more? And where do you think the human element, which is obviously what you have the expertise in, will play a part in that? What does that look like in the next few years?
It's a really interesting question because I think some of this is just about accountability, right? Some of it's about someone being responsible for the recommendations or for the output. And I think it's going to be a long time till that changes. I think as well, the restriction is more trust than capability. So the AIs are particularly the more advanced LLM models, they're capable of being pretty human and coming up with pretty nuanced insights. It's just a case that, people aren't necessarily willing to adopt an AI solution fully in these areas. I think they still are not human, right? They're trained on all of human experience, but they're not people and they don't understand how things feel. So I do think it's important to have that element in there. But I think increasingly all work, and this is a topic I spend quite a lot of time thinking about, future of work and stuff like that, will become either development of technology, and it'll be more about the actual sort of idea generation behind it rather than the technical coding of things or manufacturing of things, or will be really, really focused on the human elements, the interaction between people, the community building, the sort of training and development of people, although much of that will be handled by AI. It's things like people talk about AI replacing coaches and psychologists and stuff like that. And while, yes, they can do a good job, some of the reason you pay a coach is just to have a person give up their time and listen to what you have to say and what's on your mind. So there's going to be those human connection elements that I think will become more important. It's a difficult thing to predict at the moment. I think it's all shifting so fast, as you said, that who knows where we'll be. But I don't think jobs are entirely going to disappear. Not anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would also strongly hope. If we same topic really, which is where AI is being able to help develop the solution, but maybe more short term, the next few months, the next year or so. Based on where you are, where are you really focusing on in terms of leveraging AI and tech to be able to help improve the solution in the short term? Forgetting the longer term implications of what this could look like.
Well, I think the great thing about building something now is that these tools become native to everything that you do. Whereas a lot of more established technologies or things that we might see as competitors might be bolting AI tools on, we've built around them. And so have a lot of other companies that are building now. And I think that gives you a much more natural integration of them into your product, which is great because if you use, you know, Anthropic's API, every time they update the model, your product gets better without you having to spend more money on it. I think the other things we want to do is we want to leverage more. You know, the platform we have at the moment is brand new, so we don't do this yet, but we want to leverage more AI's capability to analyze vast amounts of unstructured data to provide cross-company comparisons to our customers. So, you know, if we have 1,000 customers and one of them has a specific situation or a specific problem they're trying to solve, well, you know, these 10 other companies that are like your company and were in a similar situation, they did this and these were their results, and feeding those things into the recommendations without naming the companies or without giving up corporate secrets or anything like that. I think that's probably the sort of the next step for us, but it's a little bit more complicated to put together.
I think there's a lot of value in that. Like if you're looking at these large companies, 500, 1,000 plus people, the knowledge bank that they theoretically have is huge, and being able to, pass through that and manage that would be quite a valuable thing. And even the thing you said about being able to interview every person, when you said that, I thought that was quite a cool thing, because probably a lot of, back when you were just doing your consulting work, you couldn't really do that at that level. And so it's an ability to like actually get a sense of the culture that you wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
otherwise.
I mean, you think about a company of just 100 people, right? Not even a huge company, but if you've got 100 people in there, speaking to everyone in the company is really the only way that you can understand the culture and the differences that exist in there. But when I used to do that as a consultant, even if I just spoke to them all for 15 minutes, by the time you've scheduled all the interviews and everything, it takes months. It takes absolutely months. Whereas theoretically, Verity could interview 2,500 people in 15 minutes if they're all available at the same time. So yeah, that sort of stuff just become the distance from start to solution gets so much shorter.
I want to pivot now and talk more about the growth and the go-to-market side. I'm really interested in businesses that started off with a consulting element and have that human expertise, which is obviously what you have, and it's a very high ticket type of thing. It's not a very simple thing, but using AI to really leverage that, I think that's quite an interesting market, especially because my background was in consulting. So it's something I'm quite interested in. Obviously, what you're selling is something that requires a lot of education for companies to probably understand the value of it and then understand how it works, etc. So tell us a bit about the journey of the go-to-market. So when you started up until now, what's that journey been like in terms of having conversations with customers, finding the leads and prospects, and what that journey's been like to get them to become customers?
Yeah, well, so you're right in that because of the consulting work we did, you know, in some ways we had a bit of a head start, right? Because we were dealing with customers on these topics all the time. You know, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've found that the best way to really figure out what to do next is to put it in front of people. But I think the mistake that people make is they go, well, let's go and ask customers what they want. That can get you some useful insight, but actually what's going to be more useful is anticipating the things they might want, coming up with a solution, putting that solution in front of people and going, what do you think? And, you know, sometimes that can be as simple as putting together a deck that describes your solution. It doesn't have to be a big investment into developing a prototype. But I think that's the first step is identify an actual problem that people need solving, come up with a solution, ask people what they think of it, and see what the response is like. I think the first part of that is important too, right? You've got to be solving an actual problem. I think one of the downsides of all these sort of AI enabled software development and things like that we see now is that a lot of the stuff that's being built is pretty trivial. There's not as much thought gone into discovery and things like that because why bother, right? Why not just build the thing and see if anyone buys it? Because it's easy. But, you know, I don't think the issue was ever that we didn't have enough engineers to write enough lines of code. It was that we didn't have enough good ideas to write code around. And I don't think Claude code is solving that anytime soon. So that's the first thing. And then you just do it by iteration, right? It's like build a small bit of it. So this is what we did with ours. We built a prototype, which was literally just the assessment. You could go and interview, Verity could go and interview 3 people in your organization, and then she'd create a strategy for you. That was it. And we put that in front of people. We saw what they thought. We did that with 42 companies, some of which were people from our network, some of which we just got in touch with, you know, cold outreach to see if they wanted to take part. We offered them discounts and all that kind of stuff when the platform was live, and the deal was give us lots of feedback. And then that informed our product development. Probably the interesting for some of your audience would be that our initial plan was to develop a fully enclosed software and AI platform that didn't actually have any human interaction in it at all, that was sort of self-service. And that would have required, a really significant build. And so we were fundraising for that. And so we were looking to raise, I think it was a £500,000 pre-seed round last summer, which, people told me that summer wasn't a great time to raise and the market's difficult and all that kind of stuff. But, we did it anyway, because what are you going to do? Wait? And it was difficult, and people didn't really get it. And I spent a lot of time speaking to investors. I spent a lot of time identifying investors, a lot of frustrating conversations. And at the same time, I had people who'd been in our beta program coming to me going, actually, this thing has come up. Can you help us with it? And so realized I'd rather be putting something in front of customers. So we put this concept together around this hybrid platform rather than a fully automated one, where you combine these tools with human elements to it, which of course meant that we didn't have to join the whole thing up and we could do some things manually and all that kind of thing, which was a faster route to market. For months, I hadn't been able to work out. I'd always rather bootstrap something because raising money is a lot of work. I just hadn't been able to work out how to get to revenue without a significant investment of capital. But as soon as we started really thinking about it from that point of view, what if we couldn't raise any money? How would we do it? The whole product changed and we were able to build something in 3 months, really just with me and Claude and Replit building most of it. We got a bit of help for some parts of it, but not much. 3 months, very little investment. I think it cost us 20 grand to build, and we've ended up with something that's way better than what we would have built software wise, and actually found that a lot of the customers we speak to, they really like the human element of it. So we kind of forget that, right? When we're here developing technology and all this kind of stuff, people sometimes just want to talk to someone as well. So yeah, it's interesting to. I've always found when I've gone out to customers and asked them what they thought of a product, it's always ended up so different than what I thought it was originally going to be.
Where you are now and then looking forward ahead to the next 12 months, what's the focus on that growth side of things? How are you going to be driving growth? What are the tactics, strategies, channels that you're really focusing on to help grow the business for the next leg?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, growth is the plan now. Go to market is pretty much everything I'm spending my time on at the moment. Three main channels currently. So I do a lot of LinkedIn content, a lot of LinkedIn organic content, always have, and that's a core channel for us, but really focusing on not just personal brand building, but providing solutions, providing tools, providing interesting insights. To your point earlier, teaching people about culture and high performance culture and the impact of it and how to do it and making it tangible and all those kinds of things that we do within the operating system. We run a lot of LinkedIn ads as well. I think that's a channel that people find difficult. What I've typically found over the years is that LinkedIn ads work really well when you have something to offer that's not a direct link to a high ticket product. And I think this is where people go wrong, is they go, we'll run £1,000 worth of LinkedIn adverts, we'll book 20 meetings, we're going to sell 100 grand's worth of stuff. It'll be great. And then they do that and they don't get a single meeting. And it's like, okay, well, what did you expect? Right. Um, I think we have a free assessment. So we have an AI assessment that people can come and do 15, 20 minutes with our culture expert Verity, and they get a really detailed report about where they are culturally, what their priorities should be, what their next steps should be. That's what we advertise. We don't advertise the product. And then from there, we talk about an implementation call, which is also free, where they can talk to one of our experts. Then we talk to them about the product. And you've got to sell people in stages. I think people go for the jugular a bit too fast sometimes.
I think you hit the nail on the head there regarding
Yeah.
this sort of, when you're selling something like this, you can't go with your first offer, especially nowadays. You have to have what a lead magnet is one way of describing it, but something there in the middle to capture people's interest. And then later on, you can nurture them into a sale.
Yeah, and I also think the bar for lead magnets has gone up significantly. It used to be an ebook, right? And something that was like 12 pages, and it was just a way to engage people. But like, you don't even get people downloading that, and you've got to sell every element of it. One of the things I've found is that even when something's free, you've still got to sell people on why they should give you their email address, why they should spend time reading it, like what they're going to get out of it. So each step has to be constructed as its own really powerful little offer to move them through. Otherwise it just doesn't work.
What would you say at the moment is the biggest challenge when it comes to actually the outreach system that you got there in terms of booking meetings or getting, leads in the pipeline? Or where is the biggest bottleneck or the biggest challenge for you at the moment?
Well, I think we're just early, right? And so not many people know who we are. And so that's always the biggest challenge, is that when you don't really have any brand presence, you just got to work really hard to get people to have any concept of who you are and what you do. I don't think it's a challenge that we didn't expect. I don't think it's something that is unique to us. It just needs a lot of hustle, right? And I think the volume that you have to do is always more than people expect. Like I said before, I think people expect to spend $1,000 on advertising and get some results, or contact 50 people and get 10 of them to reply to them. And the numbers you actually need to do are just so much higher than that, that it feels like no one's listening. But over time, that one response, that one yes, that one person who signs up, you gradually find things that work. And I think that's the other thing, is that early on, when you're building anything, you just don't know what things are going to work. You can map out a go-to-market strategy, but it's just like a list of the first three things you're going to do. After that, you'll see if they work, and if they don't, you try something else, right? And then it's a constant process of experimentation, and find one thing, do loads of that, look for the second thing, and then when you've got two things, do loads of them, and then look for the third thing, and when you've got three, do loads of them. And by the time you get four, the first one's probably stopped working, and you just constantly have to go and push it.
Yeah. I think also what a lot of people miss is that you need to be not just firing on all fronts, but you need to be present on all fronts. So, for example, a lot of people rely on cold outreach, but they don't have the content side of things to back it up. So when someone
Mhm.
does go look at them, they just aren't getting the conversion. So a lot of times people miss that. They might be doing one channel, everything's working right, but because the other channel where people go to look you up to build that trust isn't there, then it becomes harder to, break through. So it's all fronts are quite important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly, so we do quite a lot of outreach as well, warm and cold. And when I look at sort of click rates on, it's mostly email that we use. So when I look at click rates on email, if you look at what they've actually clicked on, so all of our emails lead to that culture assessment, especially the cold ones. But the company website is in my signature at the bottom. About 40% of the people who click actually click on the website, not on the link to the assessment. So like you say, you've got to have stuff there that then tells them a bit more. So yeah, you've got to, yeah, all the stuff compounds, right? It all works together.
Where do you want to be in the next 12 months?
Oh, 12 months. 12 months. Well, but
Not you're just thinking a day ahead at a time.
no. Well, it's obviously we're sort of April, right? We're mid-April now, so I'm thinking up to the end of 26, and then we'll see where we are. So end of 26, I want us to have at least 50 companies on the platform as sort of paying active customers, and to have started working towards, improvements on our product that take us to sort of version 2, because those first 50 customers, yes, they bring in revenue, but they also give you a lot of insight into how people use the product. So yeah, at least 50 by the end of the year. That might sound like not very many to some software companies, but we're selling B2B, and it's quite good value. Like, we get quite good value out of it. And then at that point, we'll be in a position to grow the team. If we get there, then we'll have the run rate and the insight to see where we need to grow. So that's the key thing. I'm trying not to think too far beyond that. I think more established businesses, you can make your 3-year plans and stuff like that. But for now, it's just like everything's a guess at the beginning, right? So
Yeah. Tom, listen, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. My final question is, if anyone's interested in finding out more about what you do, connecting with you, if learning about the business, where can they go to find you?
yeah, best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So it's Tom Froggatt. Last name is Froggatt. If you want to know about Versapia, www.versapia.ai is the best place to go. And if you want to take the free assessment, it's there for you.
Tom, thanks very much for your time today.
Cheers, Amaan.